Our people hire our people. The deputy mayor is a black woman. Department of Planning and Development is a black woman. Infrastructure deputy mayor is a black woman. Chief operations officer is a black man. Budget director is a black woman. Senior advisor is a black man. And I'm laying that out because when you ask how do we ensure that our people get a chance to grow their business, having people in my administration that will look out for the interest of everyone, and everyone means you have to look out for the interests of black folks.
No, we're not doing that. That's embarrassing.
So that was Chicago Mayor Brandon Johnson in May of this year talking about why his administration is overloaded with black people in all these different various positions. And according to Brandon Johnson, helping everyone every time he says that actually means helping black people. And in order to do so, you need to just overload with black people in every position that you could possibly imagine because black people are the absolute best. Now, of course, Brandon Johnson also ended up pointing out that his budget director is a black woman, and he was very proud of that fact. However, it wouldn't be me if I didn't point out that Brandon Johnson's budget is an absolute disaster right now. And in fact, Chicago, for the first time in the history of the city, is on the cusp of a government shutdown. So maybe, just maybe, that is not the biggest ringing endorsement for black women vendors. However, Brandon Johnson actually doubled down later on in this particular interview that he was doing at this church with the following.
There are some detractors that will push back on me and say, you know, the only thing that the mayor talks about is the hiring of black people. No, what I'm saying is when you hire our people, we always look out for everybody else. We are the most generous people on the planet.
Now, we already made a video on how laughable it is to call black people the most generous in the United States of America. That will be linked in the description. But the thing is, we don't need to go back to that video. All we need to do is examine this recent lawsuit against Brandon Johnson's administration, where a vendor at a Riverside area who has been licensed by the city of Chicago for years was recently denied that license in place of a black-owned business, despite the fact that the black-owned business didn't even submit a full application on time, and this vendor has been successfully operating, again, without any issue for years. So it's racial discrimination from the Johnson administration, and again, considering the stated policy of the Johnson administration is that you help black people first because magically through the transitive property, because black people are so generous that will help everyone else out, I am inclined to believe the claims in this lawsuit. So this is what we're going to talk about today. But before we do, I want to thank everybody who supports this channel via actualjusticewarrior.com/join.
Give me the money. Give me the money. Okay.
And the Beat Kitchen operated on the Riverwalk for 3 years. The venue's owner, Robert Gomez, says he turned a profit, generating $3 million a year in annual sales.
But Gomez says the city chose not to renew his license to operate there, even though he says he was, per city rules, the most qualified vendor and the only one to get a full application in on time. Now he is filing a federal civil rights lawsuit alleging the city revoked his license because of his race, instead tilting the scales to encourage and favor a black-owned business to take his place.
So what's interesting about this particular case is that the business in question, the person that is suing the Johnson administration, is actually already a minority-owned business. But the thing is, it's not a black-owned business, and as we heard from Brandon Johnson in the open of this video, you're not really helping everyone, wink wink, unless you're helping black people. So what is alleged in this particular complaint is that the people who review the licensing, despite the fact that they only had one application in on time, and it was from Gomez, who, by the way, produces $3 million worth of sales per year at this particular location, decided to go out of their way and solicit an application after the deadline from a black-owned business because they were scheming behind the scenes in order to get rid of Gomez because they didn't like the fact that this business was not operated by a black person, by a black-owned business, and that's absolutely shameful. Now, of course, Gomez ends up pandering a little bit to the equity agenda, and I don't like that.
The lawsuit alleges that it violates both city ordinance and federal law. In the lawsuit, he claims, quote, as a minority-owned business, Beat Kitchen supports the city's stated commitment to equity. equity grounded in transparency, consistent rules, and lawful process. That is genuine equity. What Beat Kitchen cannot support and what federal and state law forbid but took place is the substitution of race-influenced directives and considerations for the rule-based evaluation required by law. And the lawsuit goes on to claim the panel of city officials that award Riverwalk licenses, quote, privately invited and accepted a late and deficient proposal from the race-favored vendor, altered and manipulated mandatory evaluation criteria, and applied undisclosed racial considerations that advantaged the privately invited vendor.
Gomez ends up saying that he's in favor of equity, but he's not in favor of the kind of equity that ends up substituting different racial preferences in order to get the outcome that these people in the Chicago government want. But in reality, what he's actually trying to say is that he is in favor of equality. You have an open opportunity for different people to apply for this specific spot. There are application criteria and deadline, and he thinks that the way the process should work is that if you submit said application on time and you complete that application, then you should be in the running to get this particular position. But the thing is, what actually happened rather than equality is in fact equity, which is the city of Chicago decided that we need equal outcome for black-owned businesses. So even though this business did not apply, did not complete the application was in fact deficient, you ended up in a situation where the city of Chicago, wanting to have a black-owned business in that location, decided to waive all of that just for the black-owned business that they invited in order to subvert the process. And yes, that is in fact equity. So I wholly disagree with Robert Gomez right there in his characterization of what he's in favor of versus what he's against. But I want you guys to understand that in reality, what he wanted was a fair and open process where people had an equal opportunity in order to apply for this position. What he got was an equity-based process where, again, the determination was made based on race and the rules were bent and broken in order to support this black-owned business, in order to subvert Gomez and what he's doing. And again, a loss of $3 million in revenue is obviously very significant to any business owner, especially a food vendor, but the city of Chicago doesn't care because remember, according to Brandon Johnson, subverting and bending the rules in order to lift up black people helps everyone because of the magic of black generosity. So generous that they deprived this person of $3 million in revenue because he made the mistake of being too competent and being Latino, when in reality they needed a black person who can't even fill out an application to take this particular place.
Gomez says he followed all of the rules, only to see the city punish his business.
That's crushing. I mean, I have two music venues. The music industry has really struggled since COVID. Support for all of that helps get the name of the brand out there. And more importantly, I put in over the 4 years $600,000 into that.
So obviously you just heard right there, Gomez is not very happy, incredibly disappointed. He's invested a lot of time, energy, blood, sweat, and tears into that particular location. However, he is not suing the other business that the process was subverted in order to favor. He's actually suing the city of Chicago because they are the ones who committed the civil rights violation, and probably the black-owned business who, again, was solicited to take this license from this Latino business operator didn't even realize that the rules were being bent and broken on his behalf in order to achieve Brandon Johnson's racial equity agenda. Now, of course, Gomez did a lengthier interview with a local Chicago affiliate. I'm going to cut to that right here so you can get a little bit more of his side of the story.
What we do know, what the facts are, is that in the evaluation process, when they were evaluating the two proposals, they were making repeated comments about a preferred race and gender. And that's what led us to add that to the lawsuit. But the lawsuit really is about reform and forcing this committee to abide by federal law. And that's where the direction of the lawsuit.
All right. So, and to get into the weeds here a little bit, there's a committee in the Department of Fleet and Facility Management made up of city workers, employees, officials that score all the proposals and then award the contract.
So yeah, this is unsurprising to anybody who's been paying attention to the Brandon Johnson administration. I mean, the guy talks more about the Confederacy than Abraham Lincoln did fighting the Civil War, as if evil white racist Confederates are under every rock, and obviously this is meant to set the stage for the great disadvantage that black people are allegedly under in the city of Chicago, and of course justify rewriting the rules and bending society in order to advantage those black people. So yeah, this is not surprising at all whatsoever.
And you're saying that you got communications that said that they deliberately said they wanted an African-American owned business in there.
There were comments in that evaluation process along those lines, yes. But they also, I mean, there's so much more to it, so much more to unpack. They also were extremely biased in their scoring when they were looking at the two proposals. Adding to that, I was the only applicant to submit a proposal on time. There really was only me to deal with. That was their obligation based on the rules and regulations, was to deal with me and finish that process.
And by the way, I will also point out that it's absolutely shameful that Brandon Johnson's administration believes that black people are so unbelievably inept that they can't even be expected to submit a competent application on time at the deadline. They have to be solicited in order to apply for this particular position, and they have to bend and break the rules in order to subvert somebody who is already established as the vendor at this particular location. And again, they do this all because they think that black people allegedly are the most generous in all of society. And what would we do without black people being so generous to us all the time in every possible regard? I mean, I don't understand why Robert Gomez doesn't feel that generosity. So yeah, we will see, obviously, as this case develops. The city of Chicago, of course, is going to have to respond to these particular claims, or allegations, as the supermayor would call them.
False allegations and not facts.
But of course, I want to know what you guys think about all this down in the comments below. And as per usual, if you like this video, show them by leaving a like, subscribe for more content, follow me on my social medias, support me via the support links in the description of this video. This has been me talking about Brandon Johnson telling a Latino business owner that he is not wanted in the city of Chicago. Till next time.